Hey everyone, how are you? It is Saturday, and while we're waiting for everybody to get on, if you are on and you can throw me some hearts or thumbs up to let me know that the sound and quality is okay. So if you could do that for me, that would be great. Um, so I'll just wait for some people to get on. What I wanted to chat about today was my story. So you guys might be able to get to know me a little bit better and know my background. So again, if you could send me some hearts and some thumbs up if this is coming in okay. My router is upstairs, so I'm hoping that this is coming out okay. So as we're getting started and as you're listening to this, I'm going to be sharing my story today, so it would be great if whoever is on could go ahead and share where they're from. That would be great so that I could get to know you as well. So I'll just get started. If you're listening to this after, or if you're listening to it live and you have any questions, when I'm done talking, when I'm done blabbing about myself, I'm going to open this up to questions about yourself, how I might be able to help you. So if you have questions while I'm talking, don't hesitate to type them in the little spot now so that you don't forget. Sometimes as we're kind of going along, we forget what we're going to say. So feel free to type them in as they come to your head, and I will respond to them either in the context of my story or after. So my name is Heather Conley. For those that don't know, I am a functional health practitioner, and I wanted to share today with you a little bit of my story and my background and where I came from. So if we go way back, I was started having pain in 2004. I ran a full marathon and I was fine up until then. I didn't have any complaints, felt perfectly fine. And shortly after the marathon, I mean, for those of you that have run a marathon or know people that have run a marathon, it's quite labor intensive in regards to training. There's a lot of mileage in order to be able to run a full marathon and finish it in a respectable time, and that's what I wanted to do. And it was my first full marathon that I'd ever run. I had run some half marathons, but never a full. So there's a big kind of training difference, I feel anyway, between a half marathon and a full marathon. There's quite a difference in mileage that you build up over the course of training. So shortly after the marathon, I started having some neck pain, and I wasn't really sure where it was coming from. And so I had gone to the doctor, and they didn't really have any ideas as to what was wrong with me, and did a series of tests, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They basically said that there was nothing wrong with you, and bye-bye. So for those of you that are listening, if now or later, if you wanted to type in, I stated before, type in where you're from so we can get to know each other. But also what I found over the years is that people that are diagnosed with fibromyalgia, usually it takes several years to be diagnosed. And please, if I'm not coming across okay, if you could let me know. I think I sound okay to me, but I don't know what I sound like to you. So I had this neck pain, went to the doctors, didn't have any idea what was wrong with me. I was working a 9-to-5 job as an office manager, and shortly after I started having the neck pain, I started having like finger numbness and just kind of strange symptoms. And so I had gone to the doctor, and they diagnosed me with cubital tunnel syndrome, which is basically carpal tunnel syndrome, but it's in your elbow. It's the nerve that runs through your elbow, and that kind of gets caught, and it's considered a repetitive stress injury. So I had, hi Lydia. So I had a surgery for that, and was told that it may or may not work, and you know, the typical what they tell you, the percentage in regards to if it'll work or not. And so I had the surgery, and I was still having the neck pain, and I was told that perhaps that the neck pain was correlated to the elbow pain, and it made sense. And so I was hopeful that my dog is trying to get up on the counter, which is pretty cool. So you know, it made sense to me that they could be connected. So I was hopeful that the surgery would fix the neck pain as well. And so I had the surgery, and it went well, and I recovered. And then I tried to go back to work, but it wasn't happening. I was still having the same pain. So I had gone back to the doctor and they told me that I had built up scar tissue. Apparently am a person that post-surgery builds up a lot of scar tissue, which I had never had a surgery before, so I guess you don't know these things until you go through it. So they had said that I could go in and have the scar tissue removed, or I could just keep it the way that it was. And my thought process was, well, if you go in to remove the scar tissue, the operation was the thing that caused the scar tissue, so wouldn't that make sense that you would have more scar tissue? So I opted not to have the surgery, and eventually over time I was considered disabled to do my job. So I couldn't go back to my regular job, which kind of stunk, and I did enjoy my job. And so if you back up a little bit, I had signed up as a Beachbody coach a few years prior, and the reason why I signed up is because I loved the products. I didn't sign up to sell anything. I didn't sign up to make a business out of it. I have an itchy nose. Here I am, disabled to do my job, don't know what I'm going to do. I didn't really have a ton of schooling. I mean, I had a little bit here and there, but I was kind of one of those people that had gone to college and not knowing what they wanted to do. I went to, what is up with my nose? I went to business school and I had done a few odd things, but I didn't have a degree in anything. So I thought, well, I have this Beachbody thing. Maybe I can make something out of it. So I started to build my Beachbody business, which actually went very well. And for several years, I did very well at it. And I still do very well at it. But if we fast forward, and I'll ask the people that are listening, how long it took you to get diagnosed. So after I had that surgery, I still had, it was kind of like this downward spiral of badness, where it started with the neck pain, then I had the elbow pain, and then it went to the back, and then I kind of had all kinds of strange other symptoms. And so finally, in 2011 was when I was finally diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So started in 2004, it took me to 2011 to finally get a diagnosis. And I found that it was kind of a relief, like, oh my God, someone finally doesn't think I'm insane. I knew that it wasn't normal, that I'm walking around like feeling like I'm 80 when I'm 30. So I finally got the diagnosis, and I'm relieved that I finally have a diagnosis. But what I found, and what I think most people find that are listening to this, is that conventional medicine couldn't do anything for me. They wanted to put me on medication. I didn't want to go on medication. I'm not a huge medication fan. I did actually go on a couple of different medications because I was just suffering, and I totally get that with my clients now, is that, you're just miserable, right? So you just wanted anything to feel better. And one of the ones I was put on, I forget what the name of it was, but it caused major weight gain in like the course of a month. And I felt miserable and I was exhausted. And so I decided that the medication route was not for me. And that kind of entered my foray into how can I fix myself not using conventional medicine. So that I entered the world of functional medicine. I had a few functional medicine doctors that kind of introduced me to functional medicine. But what I found was I would meet with my functional medicine doctor, and not to say that they didn't do great things for me. They totally did, way more than, 4 to 5 years, which is actually shorter than most people. So, but yeah, it's frustrating. So you go all this time without being diagnosed. But, I love my functional medicine doctors. They did great things for me. But what I found is that, and they were way better than conventional doctors. Conventional doctors didn't know how to handle me. They didn't have a clue as to how to fix me. They wanted to fix me, but they, I'll get back to the cannabis oil thing in a minute. But they wanted to fix me, but they didn't have the education for getting to the root cause. And I'll go into that a little bit more later. But so what I found, though, with functional medicine doctors was that I would go to them and I would spend an hour with them once every 3 months or so. And I was left with this kind of basket of things that I needed to do with no idea how to implement them. And for myself, I think, I may have been a little bit more educated because, I had done a lot of research, and for years I've run a natural fibromyalgia group. So I had a lot of background, but for me, I still had challenges in regards to, I needed to eliminate foods, and I needed to do this, and I needed to do that. And how do you do that with no kind of direction other than, okay, do this and come back in 3 months? I found that was very limited in regards to that. So if we back up to my Beachbody story, I loved Beachbody. I still love Beachbody. I love their products. But what I found was limited there for me was it was my passion to help other people just like me get better. And I found that with the Beachbody, that could only take me so far. It's not getting kind of at the root cause of your challenges. It may help, like Shakeology could totally help with nutrition, but it's not going to help heal your gut and things like that. So I found it was very limited in regards to how far that could take me to help people. And that was what my goal was to help people just like me get better. So I went to school at IIN, which is the Integrative Nutrition School, and I studied there. And I loved the training. For me, it was pretty basic because I knew a lot of the stuff. Again, I had done a lot of research on my own. I'm a huge fan of being of your own advocate. Going into your doctor and knowing what you want and things like that. So I had done a lot of research. So it was very basic for me. And what I found was limited there was, there was a lot of tell people to eat more kale and tell people to exercise more and tell people to drink more water. And a lot of people already know this stuff. Some people don't do it, but so I found that was very limited in regards to my population. So because other health coaches, which is what I am, I'm a functional health coach, but a lot of health coaches in their population, that would be helpful because a lot of them are helping, normal everyday people just feel better. So eating kale and drinking more water and exercising more is helpful. But for me, it was very limited in regards to how I could help my population, which is people with fibromyalgia, people with chronic fatigue syndrome, people with autoimmune conditions and GI dysfunction. So that took me to study functional medicine at the Applied School of Functional Medicine, and that's what I do now. I use functional medicine to help people get to the root cause of their challenges. And what I find is beneficial and what was not helpful for me in regards to a functional doctor was kind of the not being able to implement things. The challenge of not having that continued support of you leave your functional doctor with a basket of things to do and you have no idea what you're doing. And you go back to them and not much has changed because not only do you not know what you're doing, you're overwhelmed. You have 10 things to implement and you are just overwhelmed. You have no idea what you're doing. So what I do for people is I work with them bi-monthly, 2 sessions per month, support between those sessions in regards to implementing the things that they need to do to get better. And I think that is the difference between a functional health coach and a functional doctor, is that I'm kind of there as a continued support system for people, support system for people. and I find that that's helpful for them in regards to implementing the things that they need to do, because I think what happens for people is they leave their functional doctor, or they leave their conventional doctor, or they leave a specialist or somebody else, and they have a bunch of things that they need to do. And there's so many things that they need to do that nothing gets done because they're overwhelmed. And that's not the whole goal, right? The goal is to get the things done to get better. And I think that people, like I said, they just get overwhelmed because there's too many things to do and they don't know what they're doing. So I think that that's very helpful for what I do, is because I can walk you through what you need to do. I'm not going to leave you with 10 things, because 10 things aren't going to get done. Let's start with 2 things, or even 1 thing, depending on who you are. Some people kind of do better in 1 thing at a time. But so that's kind of what I do for people in regards to helping them get better. But my story basically goes back to 2004 is when I started having, neck pain. And that's usually what I find for people, is it starts with 1 thing. So there's a question on my forums that I send people about when was the last time you felt well. Feel free to chime in on the on the chat here and let me know when the last time you felt well was. And usually there's kind of a point that happened there. So you tell me you felt good 10 years ago. Okay, what happened 10 years ago? There's something there that happened that kind of precipitated the whole downstream negative cycle of badness, is what I like to call it. So basically my story led me to helping other people just like me, and other people. I don't have any diagnosed specifically autoimmune conditions, though I do question it for myself, but I don't have no positive testing on that. But but you know, ANA, autoimmune conditions, I help people with that. Gastrointestinal dysfunction, which I find most people have. Disease begins in the gut most times. So you know, even though my story goes back to 2004 and it kind of sucks that, you know, I've been in pain that long. I mean, for me, it's kind of a blessing because that enables then me to help you. And I think part of the challenge with other practitioners that don't have chronic illnesses is that they don't get it. And that's not to say that that's a negative for them. They don't get it because they don't live it. And I think that for my clients, that helps them because I can, I let them know that I know how they feel. I mean, I go through it every day. I mean, that doesn't mean just because I'm a functional practitioner doesn't mean I never have pain. Doesn't mean I never have a bad day. Of course, we all do. It's just you can have less bad days if you get to the root cause of why you got sick. So to me, you know, I always think of the positives, and there's always a positive side to everything. There's always a blessing in everything, and my blessing is that I get to help people just like me every day get better, and I get to meet people just like you. Even if you never work with me, I still get to, you know, chat with you and meet people just like me and make friends. So that's great. Let me see. Okay, Jason. Yeah, so let's chat about that. So the pain pills, so when people have fibromyalgia, or I don't know if she has more than fibromyalgia, feel free to put that in. But I want to say thank you, Jason, for listening for her, because I think that a support system, a really great support system, is part of the key of getting better. So thank you for that. There's a lot of spouses that are not supportive if you're a spouse or you're her boyfriend, but thank you. So yes, so cannabis oil. So when you go to the doctor, they usually either put you on pain pills or they're going to put you on an SSRI or an SNRI. But yes, I mean, I definitely think that that's an option. I would definitely chat with her physician about weaning off medication. You don't want to just cold turkey off medication for sure. You definitely want to wean off. I definitely think cannabis oil is an option. I don't know what state you live in. If they have medical cards, you can definitely go that route. I find that the oil can be really great for people because, you know, some people don't want to smoke it and, you know, they're kind of weird about that. So the cannabis oil can definitely be helpful. There's a difference between that and the CBD oil, which is made out of hemp. I find that the cannabis oil is more potent. So I definitely think it's an option, and I for sure would chat with her physician about just kind of weaning off of what she's on. I also think, you know, I think cannabis oil is kind of along the same. Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. So I think it's along the same lines as a medication. Granted, it doesn't have the awful side effects as a medication, but it's still kind of putting a band-aid on what's going on for her. So I think in the interim, it may be a nice choice. Again, like I said, make sure that she chats with her physician about weaning off other medication. But I think it's a nice choice in the interim. But I still think that getting her root causes under control would make having to use any medication or any supplemental plant, I'll call it, would be beneficial. So yes, great. So if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask. If you have questions in regards to your particular situation and you want to chat with me a little bit about how I may be able to help you, if you're listening to this after and you want to chat with me, feel free to send me a message or post on this particular under this video. If you post after this is live, then I'll come back sometime during the day today and answer other questions. So feel free. Don't feel like you can't post because the video is over. I'll come back and chat with you during the course of the day. Hi Marie, how are you? Hi Amber. Is an alkaline diet better for fibro? Well, yes and no. I think an alkaline diet is best for anybody, really. That being said, everybody's different. So I'm a vegan. Some people are paleo, but I'm not like one of those vegans that are like crazy vegans that tell people that, oh my God, you can't eat meat because meat sucks and meat's bad for you. Because I'm really of the mind that every diet doesn't work for everybody. So it really kind of depends on you. A vegan diet works for me. A vegan diet may not work for Marie. You know, some people go on a vegan diet and they come back to me and they say, oh my God, I put on 20 pounds, and they're not lying. Uh, Sometimes people on a vegan diet put on 20 pounds because they don't kind of know how to eat in a vegan way. But I'm of the mind that no diet works the same for everybody. No supplement works the same for everybody. I've had people that have had weird reactions to supplements that I've never seen before. So everybody is different. In the health coaching world, we call it bio-individuality. So that being said, if she wanted to try an alkaline diet, I definitely think it's worth a shot. She may have to experiment a little bit to find out what works for her in regards to her unique body. And that's kind of what I do with my clients, is figure out what works for them and why they've come to me. Because really, what I want for Marie or Amber or Jason really doesn't matter. It's why they came to me. If Marie came to me for GI distress and I wanted to, you know, fix her headaches, and that's not why she came to me, you know, it's really all about why you came to me and how I can help you. So Jason, you're welcome. If you feel after you want to chat some more, feel free to private message me. There's a little tab at the top of this page. I'm happy to answer any other questions, and perhaps I may be able to help your wife and or girlfriend. Tell her we said hello, and have her listen to this. She might be able to get some pearls out of what I've said. So if anybody has any more questions, feel free to post them. Again, if you're listening after, I'm happy to answer questions after in regards to your unique situation. But very passionate about fibromyalgia. I'm very passionate about chronic fatigue syndrome, also autoimmune challenges, GI dysfunction. Very passionate about thyroid, hypothyroid, autoimmune thyroid, because a lot of the thyroid kind of issues in today's society are missed by conventional physicians. So there's a lot of people walking around with subclinical hypothyroidism that are suffering. So very passionate about those things and helping people to get well, because I made a video, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about hope, and I really encourage you guys to go back and listen to that. You can find it either on this page, or all of my videos are also up on my website, which is fitwithfibro.com, and they're also up on my YouTube channel. So you can always go back and listen to that. But what I think I bring to the table for a lot of people with chronic challenges, and you don't even have to have a quote unquote chronic diagnosis. You could just suffer from chronic IBS or chronic headaches or things like of that nature, because those things can be debilitating too. I mean, you don't have to have quote unquote fibromyalgia diagnosis, because if you jump back, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, things of that nature are all names for a collection of symptoms that are all caused by something. You know, fibromyalgia is still very understudied. It's still very misunderstood. And what I like to tell my clients is that you were diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a name for a collection of symptoms, all with a root cause. There's a reason why you got sick. There's the same thing with diabetes. There's a reason why you got diabetes. Let's kind of disconnect ourselves from the name and kind of identifying ourselves with being sick. I think that that's part of the challenge, is that people get sick, they feel bad for many, many years, a lot of times 10 and 15 years, and they kind of tend to then start to identify themselves as being a sick person. And I think that that's part of the challenge, is that then we, you know, that kind of whole negative self-talk enters the picture, and that's part of the challenge of why we stay sick. So what I like to bring to people is hope that they can get better, that they're not destined to be sick, that they're not destined to kind of have this label on themselves in regards to I'm a sick person. And what I've told my clients in the past too is, so say you were diagnosed with fibromyalgia, let's kind of disconnect ourselves from the word fibromyalgia, because it doesn't really matter what we call it. Like, you know, because somebody may say to me, well, I don't know if I have fibromyalgia, I may have this. It doesn't really matter what we call it. We still have to figure out what caused you to feel bad. So let's think about getting you better and not what we call it, because the fact of the matter is you still feel bad, right? You still feel sick, you still feel tired. So it doesn't matter what we call it. Let's just fix what caused you to feel that way. Because I think a lot of times people are misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia. People are misdiagnosed with a lot of other things, and I'm not. It's not my job to diagnose somebody. It's my job to help you feel better, no matter what we call it. So I hope that that's helpful in regards to, I don't like to live my life thinking, I'm a sick person. So I think that that's helpful, and that's part of where kind of health coaching comes in for people, because it's not just about supplementation and hydration and food and things like that, but it's also about like how your other pieces of your life kind of connect into all of those things, because there's a huge connection between our personal life, our professional life, and things like that, in our health. So that's kind of where I think some other forms of medicine are lacking, in that they don't have the kind of, if you think about your finances, and I have this cool little handout for my clients that have these little rocks, right? And if you think about your finances and your relationships and things like that, all on these rocks, right? And if you take out one of the rocks, all the rest of the rocks fall down, and on the bottom is your health. So all of those things are connected to your health. If you have poor relationships, if you are struggling with money and really stressed about money and relationships and things like that, that's going to trickle all down into how you feel. And I think that connects back to kind of how we see ourselves and where we ended up, and if we're sick, and if we think of ourselves as a sick person. So I think that that's helpful for many people to kind of have that aspect, not only have that aspect of their care not just be about their condition, but also kind of all of the other things that are happening in their life that kind of could be related to how they got where they are. Because there's usually a precipitating factor, but then you think about, so say you told me that you felt bad 10 years ago is when you started to feel negatively. There's usually something happen around that time, but sometimes kind of emotional things. You may have had a divorce, or some really bad money challenges, or things like that, that kind of, it's kind of this whole cycle of badness that happens for people. And I often get asked the question, like, why did I get here? Like, how did I get from 10 years ago I felt great, and now I feel like this? It's like, and it's not usually, it never really is, you started from point A and only one thing happened to get you to point B. It's usually a whole bunch of different things that, or one thing happened and then that caused something else to happen. And it's kind of this negative downstream cycle of badness, I like to call it. And I chat with my clients about their kind of, this whole thing that happened for them being like an onion. So you can't just fix one thing. You have to just keep peeling back the layers of the onion to figure out all of the root causes that got you to where you are today. And it's not an easy process for somebody that may not have the education, that, there's this whole ball of, you think about it like a ball of yarn, right? Like, how do you unravel that yourself? So that's really where I come in for my clients, is to take a look of everything that they've gone through and figure out how they got to where they are. Because oftentimes people, I'll point something out to them that they haven't really thought about for themselves, because you're too kind of close to the situation. So I kind of help people unravel their onion, their ball of yarn, to figure out. And sometimes as we kind of peel back the layers of the onion, we find other things like, oh, there's that we hadn't thought that we might find. So I think that that's helpful for people to get back to a state of wellness, to get their life back, to have hope that they can get their life back. Like I said, that's not to say you're never going to have a bad day. That's not to say you're never going to be tired, but you can have better days. You can feel better. You can, I found that a lot of my clients feel like they've lost the old them, and that person is gone, and that's not the case. So what I would love for you to do, if you're on the fence about working with me, is to head on over to my website, fitwithfibro.com, there's a section there of videos too. So you can watch the old videos so you don't have to kind of scroll through this page to find them. There are some videos on there that I've done live on Facebook, and I also have a few on there about modalities for pain. So I think a lot of people have different conditions with fibromyalgia, and some of those videos are specific to fibromyalgia, but costochondritis and a few other things are on there in regards to using certain tools like tennis balls and things like that. So you'll find some videos over there, but you'll also find a whole list of testimonials from clients just like me, clients that have worked with me and are still working with me. They're also just like me. And you'll find testimonials over there from clients that have worked with me and are still working with me. And so sometimes it helps for people to kind of go over there and check out what others have said. And my goal in using these videos is so that you can get to know me a little bit better. Hi, Tina. Thanks for joining us. My goal is so that you can kind of get to know me a little bit better. You know, I realize that I'm a distance away from most of you. I do work remotely with people all over the United States and Canada. So I do not, well, I have an office, but people do not come to my office. I work remotely. So I realize that I'm kind of this face behind the Fit with Fibro page, and a lot of people don't know me. A lot of people are kind of scared to reach out to me because I'm just kind of this mysterious person. So my hope is that you can get to know me a little bit better through these videos and maybe feel a little bit more comfortable in reaching out to me and maybe chatting about your unique situation so that maybe we can get you better. So again, if you're listening to this later, please don't hesitate to ask questions, post them, and I'll be back later after I put up a shower curtain. I'll be back later to check out the questions so I can respond to you. If you feel like you don't want to post your question here, that if it's, you know, some people are a little bit more private than others. So if you feel like you want to reach out to me personally, please don't hesitate to personally message me from this page. I'm more than happy to chat with you. I don't bite, I promise. So there's all kinds of ways to reach out to me, so please don't hesitate. Okay, so I'm gonna go, but I just wanted to chat with you today a little bit about my story so that you may be able to get to know me a little bit better. Know that I'm really no different than you are. I started out with neck pain. Who knew? In 2004, and I've kind of never been the same ever since. And I was perfectly healthy before then. So it's kind of neat for me to unravel my own onion, because of course we all have to do that. And like I said before, is that I think a lot of my clients appreciate the fact that I do have fibromyalgia, I do have chronic fatigue syndrome, I also do have chronic Lyme, but I think my clients appreciate that I'm able to know what they go through on a daily basis. I think that that's helpful for them, because if you don't kind of live it, you don't know what it feels like. And I know you guys that are listening know this. So I think that that's helpful, that I am a practitioner that also lives in a body that has fibromyalgia and a few other sorted things. Also autoimmune, because autoimmune challenges oftentimes go along with fibromyalgia. You may I've heard that there's a lot of incidents of autoimmune and fibromyalgia, and it's just basically the mechanism by why we got fibromyalgia in the first place. Oftentimes it's gut related. Disease begins in the gut. You'll hear me say that all the time, because it's so very true. So thank you for joining me on a Saturday, guys. I appreciate it. And like I said, feel free to post any questions that you have if you're listening after this is done. And this video will also be up later on today on my website as well. So if you have any family or friends that maybe are not on Facebook that you feel might benefit from this video, feel free to send them on to my website. Or if they are on Facebook, feel free to send them on over to fitwithfibro.com. I'd love to have new followers over there so that I can give you guys some value, even if you never do work with me. So I try to post things that I think would be beneficial for you guys. Thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you soon.